What's going on, everyone? It's Corey here from the Breakevens, giving you another podcast today. We're going into round 12, the first of the mid-season bye rounds. It's where things will start to get a little tough. Obviously, all the trades we've done going and leading up to this point, hopefully we've sort of strategized so we have enough players for especially this round and round 14 are the hardest bye rounds for me. But the way things are looking, I should have at least 19 available players that I can try and get the most out of. So, but as we know, things can go very south, especially with injuries and suspensions and whatnot. But I'm glad to be back for this week, and I've got a few things here today to go over. It's probably going to be a bit quicker just because we're at the point where if you're not getting the big primos and you're not downgrading to the rookies, then there's not much to talk about. So let's go through the socials before I get started. So you can hit us up on Twitter/X at Breakevens Pod. We post everything over there, always interacting with the community. So make sure you give us a follow. Our Facebook page hit 100 people, 100 followers on the Facebook page, which is great. So thank you to everyone who has followed. And if you have not, go over and search the Breakevens Pod on Facebook and you will see our logo there, and make sure you give us a follow. It really does help us out. Obviously, over here on YouTube, the Breakevens, we're weekly podcasts, and you can also find us on Instagram at the Breakevens. That's it. Let's get into how my team went to start off, and I was pretty happy. So I will get that up for you now so we can run through that. So here we have it. 2,466, 385th for the round, saw us jump 1,756 ranks, and we are now top 2K, almost top 1,500K, sitting at 1,529th. Very happy, very, very happy with how the team went last week. I made all the right decisions, bar the captain. But what I did was what 95% of people in my position would have done anyway. So no mistakes. Team did really well. Hopefully that can continue. So let's see how my plays went and then go through my trades. So this is how the team lined up. So start off Lukey Ryan, 132, was really happy with that. I had him vice captain. And as you can see, I was able to use the loop. So Zach Reed came on as captain. So I was able to get Luke Ryan ×2, which was great. Nikki Dacos 130, Sheasel 119, two great scores there. Nicky Martin 97. You'll take that for a down game. Closey 71 did exactly what I wanted, and Alex Sexton 86 was absolutely perfect. So it was a good start, and things got even better with Zach Butters 113, Bond 135, Jordan Dawson went massive 158, Zachy Merritt 119. Took Miller was the only down, well, one of two downs this week with a 95. Sammy Walsh 114, and Tom Green has fallen off a cliff with a 78 there. And Darcy Wilson with an 81 was very good. As you can see, had Flanders on the bench there, purely because he was a laid out, and I had to get someone on the field because I didn't want to take Darcy's 42. So I was able to switch him and Revel around. the Breville, who did well for me, but we'll get to him in a second. So I'm actually going 180. Obviously, if I had the captain on him, it's an extra 48 points there. So I cracked 2,500 if I do that, but as I said, 95% of people would have taken that 132 anyway. Timmy English with 100 was very good. And we move to the forward line, bit up and down. So Heaney 94, definitely take that in the forward line. Zorko 66 was very disappointing. Had a slow start, gave away a few free kicks and didn't really get back into it. So looking for him to bounce back after his bye. Zachy Fisher 113 did very well. Tom Powell 89, I will take it at this stage. Joey Richards 100, loved it. But unfortunately, he's gotten injured, which I'll get to that in a second. As I said, Breville 64. Didn't want to take that Darcy 42, so got him in there. So as you can see, a few down players. Miller, well, in the midfield, you expect a bit more. So Miller there, Tom Green definitely, and Zorko were the real downers for this week, but we'll move forward to our trades. So as you can see, I'm using 3 trades. So don't forget, during buy rounds, you get that extra trade each week if needed. I was only planning to do 2, but then Joey Richards got injured, so I am using the 3. So Richards, Sam Darcy, and Will Graham will all be going out. So let's start off with the rookies who will be coming in. Now, this one is a little controversial. That is Will Dawson. Obviously has the bye this week. So won't be playing, but there is no real rookies to go down to, and he is one that has looked good, and I think will keep his spot. So I'm just going to get him this week, as there's a few rookies next week that I am looking to get in instead. So going to get him this week just to help me for next week. Next in the forward line will be Joel Frazier. So yes, I missed out on 61K, because he made that last week, but that's okay. I will have him in my forward line. I did look at oops, sorry. There you go. I did look at Sullivan. I did look at Harrison, which I think they're both going to be great options, but I've gone with Frazier, just because he's cheaper, and he'll make a bit more money, a bit faster, and he's been consistent. Probably won't be the subs, so it's what I've gone for. If he does get dropped this week, then I will probably go for Harvey Harrison instead from the Pies. Now, so where things get interesting, because I can get anyone in my forward line. Lukey Jackson is definitely an option. Definitely someone who I have looked at if we go by average. Waterman, no. Harry Mackay is someone who I have looked at, but 3-round average is 70. He's on the way down. Grind Myers, a few people like. Charlie Curnow is definitely one person that I have looked at, but probably not this week. I might wait for his buy to be over and then try and grab him up there. Hogan, Moore, Danaher, Cameron. So there's not really many there. So really, for me, it's between Jackson and Charlie Curnow. But as I said, I want to get Curnow a bit later. So I have gone with Lukey Jackson. Obviously, down week last week with a 67. I still think he's good for a 95 average with Shrek in the side, and a 95 average for the forwards is enough. So that'll be that. And he does provide good cover for the buys, because I'm probably going to look to move Sweet on next week. So Livingston will go back into the ruck. So then I could use that as a nice little cover for the ruck. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm going to complete these trades and show you how I'm looking for my team to line up. And this is what I am looking at. So all of, I guess, non-buy players are on the field, apart from, Heaney's the only one who has the buy. Now, looking at this, I've got 5 playing defenders because I don't think Zach Reed will play. If he does, that's even better. Full mid here. I think Rogers keeps his spot. So let's be serious. He's probably not going to make the cut anyway, though. And in the forward line, Livingston won't play. So I've got, and Garcia might not play. So if we look here, I've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 confirmed, hopefully 19 with Garcia. And if a Zach Reed could come in this week, that would be great. But potentially 19. If not, I've definitely got 18 unless something crazy happens in selection. I am still worried about Closey, but they have the bye next week, so I think he still plays. If he doesn't, then for me it's easy. I'll bring Sam Darcy back. Closey would go to a defender primo there, but that's how the team's looking. I'm looking at either Dawson or Bont into Maxi Gorn. So um, Dawson has the Hawks, the MCG. I think he could go big at, and Gorn against Freo and the Rucks there um, is what I will be looking at. I could obviously go a Dacos and, as I said, a Bond, but might go a Dawson and just rely on Maxi again. So that's my team for this week. Hopefully it does too, and hopefully there isn't too many changes at selection time. So let's get into the rest of the pod. Alrighty, so let's start with our trade out players, and most of these will be our reliable rookies, those that have done well for us this season, and it might be time to move on. So first is Darcy Wilson at 418k with an average of 72.5. He has a break even of 87. Wilson has been a great consistent rookie this season, especially as of late. Unfortunately, he has a high break even, which usually means it's time to trade. But I do think we can hold him until his buy, as he has a 3-round average of 82 and a 5-round average of 92. So he's still scoring. If he goes at that 80, 82 for the next 2 weeks, he's not going to lose too much cash. We could probably still get rid of him at 400k. So um, I would be keeping him. And with other rookies going down last week, they become first priority. So I would say hold Wilson unless he's the only rookie you need to get off field. Next up is Sam Darcy, 379k with an average of 75 and a break even of 95. So Darcy has been great, making 255k for our teams. But with that high break even, it is time to move him on. He could score well against Collingwood, as they do tend to leak points each and every week. But 95 is a tall ask, and he will most likely lose money. Next up is Nat 5 at 344k with an average of 75 and a break even of 81. I said last week he was a trade, and he chucked out a 56 this week. It's quite simple. If you still have him, it's time to move him on. Sam Closey, 338k with an average of 80 and a break even of 77. Now, this is not an essential trade by any means. I'm not trading him, but people will look to move him on as he doesn't have much more money to make. But if it came down to Closey or Darcy, with an average of 80 and break even to 77, I would back in Closey to get that rather than Darcy. So I would hold Closey and trade Darcy. Next up is Jordan Sweet, 209K for average of 88 and a break even of 32. He's definitely not a trade this week, and in my eyes, he could be a hold. But a concerning photo showed Sweet was training in the B team today. Today being Tuesday, and Soldo was back in the A team, so probably won't make any more money. So you can move him on if needed. I would prefer to wait a week just in case he does play, and he has a break even of 32. So even as a second ruck, he's going to get that, and it could make you a little bit more. So I would hold for this week. And lastly is Joe Richards, 212K with an average of 89 and a break even of negative 36. Unfortunately, Richards has broken his foot and he's out for 4 to 6 weeks. So I think it's time, unfortunately, to move him on. You could always get him back at a later date to help with further upgrades if needed. But I think for now, Richards is a trade out. And two others, Hugo Garcia and Jake Rogers, I think they are holds this week. Rogers should get another go, hopefully not a sub. And I think Garcia is a chance to come in this week. I thought it was pretty stiff to go out. And seeing that the Saints do have their struggles at the moment, I think Garcia could come back in. He looked lively, so I would hold them for this week. Bubble Boys, there's no great options this week. Steely Green is really the only plain option. He scored 15 last week. He came on for like the last 10 minutes, scored 15. Doesn't scream great for a downgrade. So what you could do, and I've done this because you've just seen my team review, but you could go early on a Will Dawson or Toby McMullen if needed, but they both have the bye this week. So if you're struggling for 18, I definitely wouldn't go for them this week. But if you're going to get the 18, you could get them just to help you upgrade a Closey or a Darcy to that primo. As we move towards the trade targets, now, all top primos you currently don't have in your team are the obvious choices. And the trade targets will depend on your buy structure and how many available players you have each week. As I said, I've got potential 19, but I could lock in 18 this week. The week after, I think I've got 24, and then I think I've got 20 and then 22 or something like that. So I have the players. So I could trade in different plays to you, but if you're struggling for 18 this week or you're struggling for 18 in round 14, then that's when you might get different players in for your side. So you just need to make sure you check your buys, how many players you have, and then make changes there. But if I was you and you were struggling, I would be targeting the Freo and Port players this week if you could, just because they have the round 12, the round 13 bye, which is the bye where they're the only two teams to have a bye. So they could cover you for all the other weeks. And that's a big reason why I went Jackson. So one of those players could be Jordan Clark at 532K as a defender, averaging 105. Someone I will be keeping an eye on. He's the ninth highest averaging defender at the moment and has been super consistent all year, and he's only in 4% of teams, so it could be a great pod. Next up is Jordan Ridley, 530K defender with an average of 162. He was back last week and absolutely dominated and looked back to his best. We don't have to jump on him this week as his price won't change because it was his first game for the season. And that means we can get another look at him next week and see if he's the real deal. But saying that, a lot of people will be tempted with that 162. So I do think he's an option to go early. Luke Jackson, 508K, ruck forward, averaging 101. Shrek back did see a poor score of 67 from Jackson this week, but I don't think that's something to be afraid of. I still believe Jackson will be a top 6 to 8 as a forward and is at a cheap enough price where he's easily attainable and he has that best by that round 13. So definitely an option. Tommy Stewart, 482k defender, averaging 95. Stewart's time is now. His fixture is turning around. I've said this in multiple pods previously. He had a tough run, a lot of tough games early, and now we get into the buys. Their run gets a lot easier. A lot of games at GMHBA, playing a lot of the lower ranked sides or the sides that league points in defense. And he has the Tigers this week who give points out for fun. He has a great run home. So if you have enough players in that round 14 buy, I would be jumping on him straight away. Next up is Charlie Kerner at 468k as a forward, averaging 91. He's averaging 91 without setting Supercoach alight. Only 400s this season and has some games coming up where he could go big. He would be a great pod for your teams at 8.4% of teams currently. Next up, I want to talk about two people who have popped up this week. So first one is Adam Tomlinson, 366k as a defender, averaging 110, and Christian Salem, 345k defender mid, averaging 75. So firstly, Tomlinson, both games he has played, he has been the general down back, taking plenty of marks and getting the ball in the central defense, which bodes well for Supercoach and has showed in his average. He scored 110 both times in both of his games. For Salem, he's back from injury the last 2 weeks and has seen him pushed a bit more up the ground and found scores of 99 and 121. I saw a stat before. I think he had 13 marks last week. So a lot of easy possessions. I don't think that is going to happen very often. So that 121 could easily have been an 80 to 90. So keep that in mind. Are they legitimate picks? With Lever out for 5 more weeks, I think Tomlinson can be serviceable, and I would trust him more with his scoring over Salem. My only concern is he won't be a top 6 to 8 come season's end. So you'll be trading him in to get some cash and then straight back out. So if you have the trades available, go for it. But if you don't have access to a whole lot, then the risk of something going wrong could derail your season. So what I mean like that, you take a punt on Tomlinson, and he scores well this week, which is great. But then you get a suspension or you get an injury in the next couple of weeks, and then you have to keep him in your side. And then because you don't have enough trades, you might have to keep him for the whole year. Lever comes back and he might go from averaging 95 maybe down to a 75, 80. The risk and reward, it doesn't make sense to me. We're at the time of the year where we want to be getting those big primos in. So unless you have a plethora of trades, I would not be doing so. And as for Salem, I don't like the pick. And with no one really out injured, his role isn't cemented. And for this reason, he's not an option, in my opinion. What I mean by that is some games he might get up the field, he might not take 13 marks, and he has a lower score. He might be stuck in the back pocket. It's a lot harder to score. He'll just be a lot of up and down, where I think Tomlinson over the next 4 to 5 weeks could be a lot more consistent. Next to Harvey Harrison, 213k forward of average of 54, and Joel Frazier, 178k mid forward, averaging 67. So with Richards getting injured and no great bubble boy options, we can look towards these two for our sides. Both have looked great at home and looked to be great options for our side. Yes, they are a little bit more expensive, but they will be playing and can help us get through those deadly buys. I spoke a bit about that in my team review. And those are all the trade-in players. Obviously, if you don't have those big primos, they are the obvious trade-ins. So with that done, let's get straight into the captains. And Thursday night, VC options. You got Port versus the Blues. First up is Zachy Butters with 84, 113, 96 in his last 3 against the Blues. which isn't a great history. And Carlton are a tough matchup this season, being the 8th hardest for midfielders. But as we know, Butters can tear a game apart and he can go big in any game. So it definitely could be this week. Next up is Sammy Walsh, 87, 128, 144 in his last three against Port, which means Walsh has that better history against Port, but neither of those last three scores were at Adelaide Oval. They were all in Victoria. So, like Butters, Walsh can tear a game apart, and it just could be one of those weeks. We've seen him tease it. It could be this week. Smoky pick for this game, Dan Houston. It's hard to go past Dan Houston at Adelaide Oval. This season, he averages 113 there, and he could provide a good pod VC. Next up is Friday. Again, probably a vice captain option here. You got the Pies versus the Dogs. And Nick Dacos is one of those 139 and 69 in his only two games against the Dogs. Dacos has been super consistent this season, and with the injuries in the midfield, he looks to be the main guy. Dogs are a tough matchup, but if anyone can score, it's Nick Dacos. Next up is Marcus Bontempelli, 123, 125, and 92. Another super consistent season from Bont. And with weakened Pies midfield, Bont could dominate, and a big score is definitely on the table. I do prefer those two over anyone else, but other good options are Adam Trawl and Tim English. And the smoky pick would be Bailey Dale. The Pies forwards give away plenty of points to defenders, and Dale could have a plethora of kick-ins as the Pies do kick in accurately. So could get a whole bunch of cheapies, which, as we know, is Supercoach Gold. Next up on the Saturday, we've got vice captain or captain options. You got the Hawks versus the Crows. And first up is Jordan Dawson, 78, 80, and 73 in his last three against the Hawks, which doesn't look great, but the Hawks are the fifth easiest matchup for midfielders this season, and Dawson went huge last week with 158, and he could replicate that this week. Now, those previous scores aren't at the MCG, just to let you know. They are all over from all over Australia. I think there's one in NT. There might have been one in Adelaide and one somewhere else. So I wouldn't pay too much attention to those scores. Next up, Rory Laird, 126, 125, 111 in his last three against the Hawks. Laird, like Dawson, has the opportunity to go massive this week, and he's definitely a consideration for owners. There's not much more I could elaborate because Dawson and Laird go hand in hand, I feel. And if you want to go a Hawks man, James Sicily is probably your guy and another great option. Smoky pick, though, is Will Day. He has a 3-round average of 116, and he has been in fine form and could get off the chain once again. Someone who I did look at, but couldn't justify his awkward price. Next up, we've got the Eagles versus the Saints. Rowan Marshall and Jack Steele. I've put them in together because they're both the obvious picks in this game, with the Eagles leaking points all over the field. If you have any of these two, I will definitely put one of them as VC. Unfortunately for me, I don't have either. So I would probably lean towards Marshall. I think he has the highest ceiling against the Eagles, but I think Jack Steele, I think you could lock him in for 130. No other real picks. The smoky pick, though, is Jeremy McGovern, 108 average, and the Saints leak the second most points for defenders this season. So you could see McGovern go big. Next up, you got the Cats versus the Tigers, and first one is Maxi Holmes, 110 average in his last three rounds, and he's playing the Tigers, who leak the most points for defenders and midfielders, which, as we know, Max Holmes can play a bit halfback, run through that middle, get plenty of ball, get that ball moving forward. So he could have an absolute field day this week. Next one is Tommy Stewart, 115, 161, and 92. in his last three against the Tigers. As stated with Holmes, the Tigers give away the most points for defenders, which means only good things for Stewart. Add in the fact that they're playing at JMHBA as well, it almost makes it a certainty. You could see him going 160 easily this week. And in my opinion, there's no other options in this game and no real smoky picks either. So I'd be going one of those two. As we move towards the Sunday, and these will be your definite captain options. You've got the D's versus Freo. Obviously, Max gone 98, 114, and 118 in his last three against the Dockers. If there's one thing I've learned this year, it's never bet against Maxi. One calf or two, it doesn't matter. Back in the big fella. The Dockers rucks leak points, which means Maxi could go large once again. Next up is Lukey Ryan, 91, 110, and 141 in his last three against the D's. Another one that just scores points and is hard to go against. The D's forwards do leak points to defenders, and if they kick inaccurately, Ryan could see a lot of easy points from kick-ins. Caleb Strong and Christian Petrarca are other great options as well, but I'd probably be looking towards the other two first. The smoky pick in this game would be Jordan Clark. Super consistent year, as I said earlier, and the D's give up points to defenders. So we could see another great score from Clark. As a captain, I probably wouldn't do that. If it was a vice captain, maybe. But if you're feeling lucky, you're feeling risky, definitely go for it. And the last game is the Suns versus the Bombers. Now, tough matchups across the board means if you have any of Flanders, Merritt, Miller, Matt Rowell, or Nick Martin, they could all score well and are good options for our teams. I was looking, Suns are hard to score against. Bombers, as of late, have been hard to score against. My picks out of there would be Merritt first and then Matt Rowell. But any of those guys could score well this week. And the smoky pick is Jordan Ridley. The Suns tend to leak points from time to time against defenders. And if last week was anything to go by, Ridley could see another 120 plus score. If he takes those kick-ins, if he gets those intercept marks, we could see another big score from Ridley. Hopefully not, only because I'm not picking him up this week, and a lot of people will jump in because of last week. So hopefully I'm playing people who have brought him in and he sinks it up. But if you do have him, he could be a genuine option here. So those are all the captain options. So I'll take you through the top 5 vice captain options, in my opinion, for this round. And starting at number 5, I've put Nick Dacos against the Dogs. It's hard to go against a guy who's only dropped under 100 once. So Nick Dacos it is. At number 4, Bontempelli. I just feel he's more likely to go big. Dacos could just get a simple 110 to 125. I'd be happy with that, but I think Bond has the opportunity to go 140 in this game, so that's why I've got him at number 4. Rowan Marshall, I've put at number 3. Now, I said before I'd prefer Marshall over Steele. He's just not as consistent as Steele and the person I've got in number 2. So I've gone Rowan Marshall, who should have a good score. And I would have had him 1, but I'm looking for a bit of consistency, and he's been a bit up and down at times. So there you have that. In number 2, I've got Jordan Dawson against the Hawks. I just think he could go absolutely massive. The last month of his, he seemed to have turned it around. They're looking for him now. He's using the ball well. And against the Hawks, who leak points, I don't think they're going to tag him, so he could get off the chain. And number 1, I've got Jack Steele. I just think he's the most consistent out of them all, to be able to put out that big captain score. So I could have easily put him at 2 and Dawson at 1. They're interchangeable, but I've gone with Steele. And now we move towards the top 5 captain options for this week. At number 5, I've got Marshall. I already spoke about him, so I won't go on too much there, but he could go big. At number 4, I've got Maxi Holmes. A nice pod pick there. I just think it's the Tigers. Everyone scores well against the Tigers. A lot of people won't look to him, so he'll go a bit under the radar. So I'll put him at number 4. Just because, yeah, I like that selection this week. Number 3 is Steele. Um, again, I just think he could go absolutely massive. Number 2 is Tommy Stewart. Again, against the Tigers, they leak points in defense. He could have an absolute field day at GMHBA. He loves it there. It's just a great matchup. And number 1, I've put Maxi Gawn against Freo. As I said, I'm not going against Max Gawn. Freo, with Darcy and Jackson, they do tend to leak points at times, and Maxi Gawn could get on top early. And he loves a goal late from outside 50. So if he does that, he's scoring over 100 anyway. So Max Gawn, it is. And that's going to do us for today. That's everything I've got. As I said, it was a bit of a quicker pod. We're getting at the buy, so there's less people to trade in, less people to trade out. So that does tend to happen, but that's good. Is there anyone who I haven't named for a trade in or a trade out player that you're looking at? Let me know in the comments below. And I'd just be interested to see what your thoughts are. So that's going to do it. Let's go through our socials quickly. So don't forget, you can hit us up on Twitter/X at Breakevens Pod, the Breakevens Facebook page. Give us a follow there. Everything that is said in this podcast goes over there and is posted. All the trade outs, the trade ins, all the captain options, they all go on the Facebook page. So if you don't want to just rewind this, listen again in a couple of days' time, I'll re-listen. Go to the Facebook page. It's there. It's easy. Give us a follow. Don't forget, on Instagram, of course, and over here on YouTube at the Break Even. So thank you all again for listening and watching. And until next time, it's bye for now.